I think experimenting with photography is fun, because there isn't really one right or wrong way to actually do photography, which is kind of one of the great things about it. And recently, I had time to, experiment and play around a little bit with infrared photography. So for those of you that do not know what infrared photography is basically just taking pictures with an infrared camera. And to explain what an infrared camera is, I'm gonna have to read this from Google, because if I try and explain it, it's just not gonna make any sense. Not that this definition makes a whole lot of sense either if you don't really know much about science. So here we go. A thermographic camera, or a thermal imaging camera, is a device that creates an image using infrared radiation similar to a common camera that forms an image using visible light. So kind of how people took that into, and then started using it for photography is kind of just like with, infrared photography, it's a look into the invisible world because our eyes can only see so much. And what an infrared camera sees compared to our eyes is so, drastically different. And you're just able to get, these cool, amazing colors. So now what actually is an infrared camera? We know there are many different, ones. Just like, with regular cameras, you have the, the high-end expensive ones that people use in the scientific world. And then, nowadays you can actually just convert a normal DSLR into an infrared camera, which is what I was using. I was renting one from my school, which was been converted, and it was a Canon 40D, and I was just using a 24 to 105 lens with it. So I don't know what the process of actually converting a camera to an infrared one looks like. The way, I read about it online, it doesn't seem like a too complicated process, and it seems like, most, older DSLRs, are capable of doing it. Personally, if I were to have my own infrared camera, which hopefully at some point I, will want to get one, I would not use, a good or like one of my main cameras. I'd probably buy like a cheap, DSLR and just convert that, because I don't know about the process of converting it, and then if you want to change it back to a normal one, I don't know what that process would look like, and it could easily very well fuck up your nice expensive camera. So just use a little caution if you are going to convert one of your cameras. But once you have a converted camera and you're shooting with it, it's really just like shooting with any other DSLR camera, which is nice. It's mainly, in the editing side of things where things look a little bit different, because right when you take the picture, what you see on the back of your screen is just this red image. And it does look kind of cool, but it's just completely red. It doesn't really look interesting at all. And it's really in the editing side of things where you start to get that, differentiation of like colors and what, infrared photography really is about. So I'm not going to give you an in-depth tutorial of how to edit, infrared images, because online there's a lot of, tutorials already about it, and, web pages to read just going over infrared photography in general. But, it can get very complicated very quickly from, downloading specific applications just meant for editing infrared images, or, there's a bunch of, LUTs, presets, and actions you can download as well to kind of, make yours, just super complicated edits. I kind of just stuck to, the simple edits of it, where I just took the images into Photoshop and just, played around with the colors in there. So, obviously my images compared to, the images you see for infrared photography when you look it up are, drastically different, because, this was my first approach to it, and there's still, a lot I don't know or understand about it, because it is kind of complicated compared to what the other photography stuff that I'm used to. But I still think the images turned out pretty good, especially for this being my first attempt at it. And I think the colors I got were just super cool and really amazing, and nothing compared to what I could get on a normal camera. Alright, so that was a very explanation-y video of me hopefully successfully explaining what infrared photography is. And sorry if this video was just me talking the whole time. With my other videos, I like to focus more on the images and the image taking process. But for this one, I wanted to focus more on the technical side of things, because infrared photography is a very technical subject, and it can get very confusing very quickly. And it's kind of like one of those things where infrared cameras exist, they've been using them for years, but it's like, holy shit, you can actually take pictures with them, kind of like the way that photographers do, and you can actually get a result from them, because it's kind of like, of course you can do this, you can do a lot of things with photography, but it doesn't really click until you actually learn about it. And if it wasn't for my school and being actually able to rent an infrared camera, I probably would have never tried it out, and never really known about it or gotten into it. So I kind of just wanted to make this video from a beginner's perspective, kind of get shed some insight on that as well. But that also being said, I think my images turned out pretty okay for being a beginner as well. Obviously, there's still a lot that I need to learn on the technical shooting side of it and editing side as well. And hopefully, someday I will, just buy a cheap, crappy camera and use that as an infrared camera, because it was definitely, fun experience. I, definitely enjoyed it. And, the next time I do it, I do, want to know a lot more than I do right now about it. But this was just, a simple, fun way to experiment in photography, which is, always, a good thing. And, sometimes you don't really have time to experiment. So kind of just with trying new things like this, it's definitely a fun way to, get out of your comfort zone and, learn something completely new about photography, which is always nice.